Ask anyone how they transfer their crypto from one exchange to another, and I'd be willing to wager the answer is probably Stellar Lumens. But with people jokingly calling it a stablecoin these days, is there more going on than people think? Stick around and let's talk about it. Hey guys, I'm Sprague, and there has been a big push in the crypto space recently for DeFi and the benefits of it, but I feel like this is casting a large shadow over an area of crypto that is really needed if it's ever going to go mainstream, and that's a bridge between traditional financial systems and crypto. This bridge would allow companies to take their physical assets or customers' physical assets and tokenize them into a digital form on a blockchain. And this is where Stellar comes in. But firstly, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. It is purely educational. And if you enjoy the content, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. But before we get into how the Stellar chain actually works, first we need to identify what Stellar is trying to do. Because unlike a lot of chains that are popping up now, being one of the oldest cryptos on the scene means that Stellar wasn't created to compete with anything. Even though it does share a lot of similarities with Ripple, particularly in its early days code base, they are aiming to do different things with different user bases. Stellar is aiming to allow any institution to create a pegged token on the Stellar chain. To do this, they would use anchors, which are essentially ways for customers to deposit fiat or assets and receive the same asset but in a tokenized form. These tokenized assets would then be truly borderless and allow all of these different financial institutions to interact with each other on a single chain with no middlemen. The part of Stellar that most people know about is the Lumen, or XLM. And even though the Lumen is actually only used for paying transfer fees and initializing user accounts, it's actually a very good example of what the Stellar chain is capable of. Incredibly fast transaction times at very low fees. However, as I said, XLM is only a utility of the network. The real strength in the Stellar chain comes from the fact that any institution can create a token on the network without needing smart contracts. These tokens can then use inbuilt protocols for swapping between any other token form and provide easy on-off ramps for fiat in the form of the anchors. This would not only facilitate borderless currency transfer, but more importantly, it would target the unbanked and allow them to take advantage of world's currencies with only the need for a phone. As I mentioned, Stellar is very similar to Ripple, but one area that they very much differ on is how they handle their consensus mechanism, with both of them using a variation of the Federated Byzantine Agreement. For anyone wondering what the Byzantine General Problem is and why it is commonly used as an analogy for decentralized networks, let's take this example. Let's say we have a city, and on either side of the city we have an army. These armies need to coordinate their attacks on the city, as one army alone could not do it. The only way to do it would be to have Army A send a messenger through the city to Army B to propose a time and a date for the attack. Then Army B would send the messenger back with either a confirmation or a new proposed time or date. This is great in theory, but what happens if that messenger was, for example, killed, replaced, or corrupted? Then one or both of the armies might be given misleading information that would cause them to attack at the wrong time and fail that attack. We can use the formula of total nodes or armies equals 3 times the number of faulty or corrupted nodes plus 1 to determine the size of a network that we would need to make sure that consensus is reached even if there is faulty or corrupt nodes. Let's take our initial analogy of the 2 armies. Using that formula, we would need 4 armies surrounding this city to cover the event that one of them is corrupt. In this solution, as long as 2/3 of the network can be trusted, then a consensus can be reached. The problem with this is that every node is trusted equally. And this is why for a decentralized network, this does not work, because there could be malicious nodes joining the network and sending out fake messages to everyone just to throw the network off. And this is how we've ended up with the Federated Byzantine Agreement, or rather Stellar's implementation of it, the Stellar Consensus Protocol. In this protocol, every node has its own quorum slice, where a quorum is just the minimum number of participants it needs to reach consensus. Now, To make sure that this system will reach consensus, all of these quorum slices created by the nodes must be overlapping in some way to create one larger consensus. This is how, using SCP, consensus can be reached without the need of a proof of work or proof of stake algorithm in place where a single validator is chosen. This does, however, raise some questions, because how would a node choose who's in its quorum slice? And how would it ensure that there is overlapping intersections? Ripple, which also uses a version of FDA, recommends a list of validators, and if a node should want to choose anything that's not on that initial list, they have to go out and find those validators themselves, and to be added to other people's lists, they need to provide their identity and encourage other people to add them to their unique node lists. On the flip side, Stellar aims to make starting up a new validator a lot simpler and automate a lot of the process. To do this, Stellar will group nodes together based on their organization and then use that to set thresholds to build quorum slices. This means that you don't need a recommended set or really any manual labor to get up and running. However, you can add nodes manually if you want to. On top of this, when the node selections are made and the quorum slice is built, an algorithm will run in the background to make sure that there is enough intersections to keep consensus. This is important because in all blockchains there is a trade-off between liveness and safety, with safety meaning that at no point will two nodes send conflicting opinions, and where liveness means that at some point consensus will be reached. This is extremely important when dealing with the real-world use cases that Stellar is aiming to solve, because too much of a focus on liveness and at some point the chain could fork and end up double spending, due to the fact that on the Stellar network, transactions are confirmed as soon as the ledger is closed. Unlike proof-of-work systems, where layers of confirmation need to be made to avoid double spending caused by forking, on the Stellar network, they would double spend. However, too much focus on safety and the network might never reach a consensus, which could cause manual intervention to be needed, which defeats the whole point of having a decentralized network. So Stellar has made sure that it is incredibly easy to set up your own node and build your own quorum slice. However, due to the fact that there is no mining or staking, there is no participation reward for running your own node, which means that a lot of big organizations that run their own nodes do so because they have a stake in the network. This means that the larger a company is and the more nodes it runs, the more likelihood that there is that they are having a greater say in what the consensus is. But now that we've covered the chain, what about the anchors? Where do they fit into this? Well, as I said, unlike say Ethereum, there is no smart contracts on Stellar. The tokens and ability to create and issue tokens is built directly into the code that runs the Stellar network. There is three types of asset on the Stellar chain. There's the Lumen, non-anchored assets, which originate on the chain and are similar to ERC20 tokens in that they are not backed by any real-world asset, such as the token SLT. And then you have anchored assets, which originate off the chain and are backed by an anchoring entity. The easiest way to understand anchors is to think of them like a bank. When you put £10 or $10 into your bank, and then you look at your online banking, what you are seeing is an IOU for £10 or $10. This is exactly how anchors work on the Stellar network. You give them your asset and they will turn it into a tokenized version of that asset. The difference is that now this tokenized version is completely fungible with any other asset on the Stellar chain and can also be sent wherever or to whomever you want. Due to the way that anchors work, they could, in theory, also provide anchoring to other cryptos. For example, to avoid high Bitcoin fees in day-to-day transactions, you could have an anchor that takes Bitcoin and issues a tokenized version of Bitcoin on the Stellar chain. This would let you use it with low fees, but at any point cash back out to Bitcoin if you so wished. So now the question that a lot of people are probably asking, is Stellar a long hold? Or is it a hard pass? With so many tokens already being created on the Stellar chain and some big names like IBM backing it, and some big banking institutions already creating pegged versions of the dollar, the pound, and the euro. There is obviously desire for a platform such as Stellar, which suggests that as crypto grows, it could be leading the charge into mainstream crypto adoption. When Stellar first launched, there was 100 billion tokens minted. However, in 2019, it was decided that there would be a hard cap of 50 billion put on, and where previously there was a 1% inflation per year, this has now been removed. So it is hard capped at 50 billion with no more tokens coming into circulation. Due to the fact that the Stellar Foundation does need to encourage institutions to come and use the chain, more than half of these 50 billion tokens are currently held by the Stellar Development Foundation. However, the mandatory use of these tokens is for spending to encourage and promote the network, and will not be used to inflate or to control the price of the token, which leaves 22 billion tokens currently on the market at the time of recording this, 49 cents. Now, unlike in my algo video, there's really no crypto that we can compare Stellar to due to the fact it's not really competing with anyone. But if we were to use the max supply and compare it to Ripple, we'd end up still doubling the price of the token. However, the real reason that you might invest in Stellar is because at the end of the day, this is what the crypto scene needs. We need a bridge between big clunky financial institutions and the crypto space. Because at the end of the day, for crypto to go mainstream, we need your everyday person using crypto. And right now, the only way that they're going to do that is if their bank or the financial institution that holds their funds offers it to them. So we need something like Stellar so that in 10 years we can look back and go, we were early adopters on that train while everyone else is just starting to finally get into the scene. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there are any coins or chains that you want me to check out and do videos on in the future, please leave them down below in the comments. However, please only leave coins that have their own chain. I don't want to cover any tokens because at the end of the day, I like to focus on the underlying tech of a project. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you just enjoy the content in general, please consider subscribing. Thanks, bye.